Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Dev Method. Today's episode we're going to talk about another really cool feature in JavaScript called destructuring. And so destructuring helps you get to what you really need, and you don't necessarily have to write all that dot notation. You can get it all done in one line. It's also really good for aliasing, so essentially giving yourself a little bit more of customization on what you want something called, maybe like their parameters passed into your functions, and you want to be able to rename some of those things internally to the function implementation, but you don't necessarily want to change what other people called their objects. So let's take a look at it. I have an example here. So I have this variable called x, and it is an object. And just so you get an idea of what that looks like, let's go ahead and run that real quick. So you can see down here, it just says what the object actually is. Now let's say I want to get the object's name. So this dot name. Okay, let's run this. So notice it just printed out Ricky, right? And then if I wanted, let's say the pet, right? There's pet. Okay, print this out. And then it goes ahead and prints out whatever that object is there too. So that's our data structure we're going to work with right now. It's just this object. So if I wanted a name, I would do x.name, right? And if I wanted the pet, I could do x.pet. Right? But what if I wanted the pet name, x.pet.name, and then the pet kind, right? x.pet.kind. So you see how we have all this dot notation? So the dot notation we can actually get rid of in our destructuring. So let's say I wanted this same type of result. I would do, well, here, let me take this away here. I would do something like this, right? So if I was to comment out the line before, so this is the same exact thing, these two lines here. So this getting the name is the same thing as what we're doing here. Okay, so what it does is it takes x.pet and then it says, do I have anything of dot name? And if I do, it puts it out on this line here too. So let's just prove ourselves that this is correct. And let's see the name come out. There it is, the name there, Cheddar, cool. And let's say if I wanted to do the same thing, but now with the kind, we would do this. Now we have the name and the kind very quickly, right? Instead of declaring two variables. So start there, there's the kind, and there's the name. So again, another way to write that could have been kind x.pet.kind, right? So we get that it's a dog. Another way you might have thought of doing something like this could have been kind equals x.pet.name. This is another way to write that same thing, right? So that both will be const. So that's just a little bit of destructuring with an object. Let's take a look at maybe aliasing some of these names. Something like set pet, like this. And what we could do is we can give it the pet, okay? And when given the pet, let's just print out what that looks like. So let me remove this here. run that. Oh, gotta set pet. Cool. And we'll do x.pet. Okay. There it goes. Okay. So let's say if, I don't know, we don't want to do something like this, but we want to say if the pet.kind equals duck, we will quack. Let's see if we can put a duck in there. Duck. There's a duck. All right. Else if the pet.kind equals a dog. Okay. Let's see. Let's say we'll just say speak. Oop, there we go. So this will be a new function called speak. And then we'll say roof, which is a dog. So let's put the dog in there. There we go. Okay. So watch what happens here. If we do the pet and then it looks for the kind and then it does duck and then it looks for the kind again and sees if it's a dog. So if we were to run this, you can see here it says roof. Let's just change this to like bird. We'll see nothing happen. So what that means is that it checks for the duck, doesn't find it, checks for the dog, doesn't find it, and then exits the function. So let me change this back to dog here. Now the whole reason of me showing you this is like the destructuring. So let's say this pet here, we wanted to destructure a pet, and every pet is going to have a name and every pet is going to have a kind, right? So we don't have to do like what we did up here. We could destructure the parameters of the function. So in this case, we only use kind to figure out how this animal should speak or how the pet should speak. So with that, if I put in the pet and then I destructure the kind, I no longer need pet dot something. I can just say kind. So if the kind is a duck, the kind is a dog, it does what it needs to do. So let's just make sure that that still works. There it is, still works, it says roof. So let's say we wanted to upgrade this interface here, and we don't necessarily want to pass in a variable, but we just pass in anything. Just, here we go, pass in the duck, okay. Now it makes an object, passes that in, and let's see. Yep, now it says quack. Let's say bird. Okay, cool, it does nothing, right? So this is the idea of the destructuring that you could use inside of your projects. Now it's, let's say speak, and it was not kind that came in, but it was like something else. Like what if we wanted to change this to not accept kind, but then it's like I don't know, type, something like this. So this is what's known as aliasing. So you can still pass in kind, but then what you're looking for is now type. So if the type equals duck or if the type equals dog, do the same thing. So just to prove that this works and that this will still run as expected, let's go ahead and try it again. So there it is, roof, dog. So this is that aliasing that we did there, which is pretty cool. Now another thing we could do too, let's say like speak doesn't necessarily take a pet, but it takes like this human or this person. So let's say human. So this is a human, and this human has a pet, right? Let's see what happens if we were to pass in a human. So if we were to pass in a human this time, it would be like human.pet.kind right here, okay? Human.pet.kind. And we'd still get the same result if I pass in human here. Okay. There it is, roof. Now let's say we wanted to destructure this guy and they have a pet. Okay. That means we could get rid of the human. Okay. Run that. Still get roof. Okay, great. But now what if we want to take away from the pet there and we can get the kind again? So this aliases the pet and then destructure what that new thing is. So it's kind of like saying this is like the same thing, like we're going to get the pet, but now we're destructuring it and we're going to get the kind again. So there's the kind. Okay, just to prove to you it works, we'll run it again. There's roof. Very cool. Now let's say kind, again we want to alias to type. So we're not destructuring anything. This is literally just where the value is going to be. So we'll just do type here and type here. Boom. There we go. We could also do the same thing with multiple parameters here. So just to give you an idea, what if we wanted to print out that duck, or I'm sorry, print out the kind, right? The aliasing, but now we have to for some reason we have to upgrade it and like say the location. So this is maybe the location of the pet, but it just is called location. So here's pet, but then we can get location, okay? So it's a new parameter that we've added in. And we'll just add this in as the next thing, location. Whoop. Location, and location. Run that. So now it does show the location, like the array there. So that's pretty cool. So it's like a geolocation, like a latitude, longitude. That's the idea. So now we don't want it to be location, but we call it like, I don't know, location of pet, because we want it to be more descriptive. So we don't have to change anything of what's going on in here. Now we just have an alias, and this is just the location of the pet. So it's a little bit more descriptive in the implementation of what that actually is. And just to show you, it'll run again, and we could do that. So this is how you can destructure your parameters going into functions. You can destructure parameters right here too. So just, just to give you guys an idea of what this means. So we could do something like this. Take all of this stuff. Let's just call it params for parameters. Put all the information here. And here we go. There's that destructure. And this will work the same exact way. Pretty cool, right? Now, what if there was like another thing that sometimes the object have and sometimes it didn't? Like, let's say money, right? Maybe a human doesn't have money. So money is null, right? Or maybe if like money's not there, this would mean that money's undefined. So let's go ahead and do that. So money, add that onto the parameters. And I'm actually going to take this away. Put this back up here. So money, right? So I'll do like, I don't know. I'll do like $sign plus the money. Yeah. So you'll see there it's $sign undefined because it didn't find it there. So that's pretty cool, right? Destructuring. Another thing you could do too with the destructuring, if that property is not there, you can actually give it a default. So here I'm giving it 100 as the default. So now, if there is no money, it will actually substitute undefined for 100. And let's go ahead and see what that looks like. Here it is, 100. Pretty cool, right? If I was doing this and my parameters are getting rather long here, you'll see like some of the auto completion in your text editors will actually have a lot of this like set up for you. This isn't like probably the best one right here, but let's move this back to just like the originals without the aliasing. Let's see, what does that do for us? It still doesn't give us like quite enough information to tell you how it's actually auto completing, but that's the idea of destructuring your parameters. Now let's just say money is null. Okay, what would that do? So notice, oh, didn't mean to do that. So notice money is actually defined, but since it's passing in null, there is a value there, so it's not going to catch that default. Yeah. So if you still wanted that same behavior even for null parameters, you'd have to do some sort of like falsy check, something like that. So that's a thing. Now you can get super creative with stuff like that, but let me wrap this up. Oh, that's for the duck. There we go. So it's 100 no matter what. Let me just show you 50 if it hits inside the log statement but doesn't use the default parameter value. There it is, hits 50. So there's a lot of different ways to cut your variables up and destructure these objects that you might get. And just to show you, if this was a bigger application, it would probably look something like this, even with the trailing comma there. There's a lot of, if you go online and maybe look up some bigger projects and some bigger Git repositories on like GitHub. So if you look at, what's a good one? I was just looking at the other day at Relay, and they do a lot of their destructuring in this way. And they separate things on multiple lines. It's not all the time that you see it in parameters like this. Usually it's a little bit, like if they're using a type system like Flow or TypeScript, it might look a little different than this. But this is something you could definitely use in your functions if you'd like. It is a little bit difficult to read sometimes, so if you're relying on like autocomplete from your text editor and it's not giving you exactly what you want, that is something to consider when sharing this code with other people. But this is something that you might want to be doing when you're destructuring in JavaScript. So that's destructuring objects. Let's look at arrays. So I have another file here for arrays. And just to give you an idea of what we're dealing with here, again, it's X. And let's change this to arrays. Okay, so if I run this, I get every item in the array, okay? And then I'll also print the length of the array, or the count. So the count is 3. Just to give you an idea that that's everything that's in the array. So what if we wanted to destructure an array? Let's say we wanted the first thing in the array. We'd do like X, something like this, right? And then we want the second thing in the array. It would be by this index, and then we want like the last thing in the array, and that would be this. Or another way could be x.length minus 1. That could be another way to do the same thing. So you just put here 2, right? So that's the idea. Let's go ahead and print these all out. So let's just do first, and then second, and then third. Let's run that. Oh, what happened here? Oh, not third, last. There we go. So here's the first thing, which is Ricky, the second thing, which is Arik, and then the last thing it says here, Andrew, right? So this is one way to get to that stuff, but then let's say it's like the first, and then each one of these have a name. So it'd be like .name, right? .name, cool. Yeah, get all their names. You could also do this, right? So this aliases to the name. So instead of doing .name, this will set the name to last, and then this will still work as expected, right? So that's a little bit of getting things out of the array and then like destructuring on those objects. But what if we could do something like first and the rest, or first and others? So we would just do something like this, right? This would give us the first, but then what if we wanted the others? How could we get that? You might think we have to do something like this. Plus, oh wait, then that, and then x2, right? That would get the others. So those would be the others. But notice, like, if I add something more in this array, let me add like another thing here too. Oh, I don't know, who should this be? Wayne, and he's at 0, 2. I don't know who Wayne is. Pet, no pet. Okay, so this is Wayne. Now Wayne is not going to be in others. Let me pull this up just a little bit more. See, others only gets what's hard-coded as the second index and the third index. Now I could get the last one, right? Because I said the length minus 1 will get me the last one, but now we're missing Andrew in this array. So here's where destructuring can help us out. Let's say we wanted just the first thing. So instead of wrapping it in these wing braces, we could wrap it in something like this. So this will get us the first thing, okay? This will get us the second thing, and the third thing, and the last here, okay? Now, it doesn't necessarily show them as other, so you might think, well, now you need to do something like this, second, third, last. But we still hard code what these values are. So let's just say we wanted the first thing, and that's it. This would actually give us that first thing. Let's see what the first thing is. See, Ricky, right? Now, if I wanted just the second thing, I could ignore the first thing. I'd put an underscore there, but it can be called, you know, something else, whatever you'd like. But this would just like always get, whoops, the second thing. Here, I'll just call this second thing, right? Always get the second thing. So that's kind of like indexing into the array too. Now what would happen if this was empty and you did this? Let's see. So the second thing is undefined, so there's no index out of bounds, so that's kind of cool, right? But you would get the same thing if this was like, you know, if this was an empty array and you got this, or you did this on it, like get the second thing in the array, that would actually give you undefined too. So here's what we could do. Let's just say we go back a couple steps to the first. Okay, and now we do want others. Okay, we could actually use the spread operator. So this is known as like head and the tail. So it's like everything else, no matter how many other else's there are. So now other has Andrew, Arik, and Wayne. And if I added something else in here too, let's just call it dude, the age is -99. And it's like, I don't know, 0 and 1 is a friend, true, still no pet. This would actually still work. It would get dude in the other as well. So as you can see, we have the first, which is like, this is also known as the head. And then you have others, which is like the tail. This is referred to as tail. This is head, tail. Pretty cool, right? So there's actually quite a few cool ways. You might think about like, why would you use an array to destructure or like an object to destructure? So there's a couple things about it. If you were doing an array, notice we didn't have to depend on any of the key names in here, like age or location or something like that. So that's, I could just call this head, I could call it first, I can call it X, I can call it, you know, whatever variable name I want, lets me declare that variable. But when we're doing objects, we actually have to go with some of the names that are already the keys on those objects. Where this gets a little confusing is if you're trying to do two types of destructuring in one, so you could say like name here, but then like, I don't think you can do this. Like get all the rest but just their names. Other names. Yeah, I don't know that you can do this. Let's see. Oh yeah, I guess you could do that, but this part definitely did not work. But I could destructure the array just to get that one thing, and then in turn then destructure that first element. If I did, again, this is the first, but then I can alias it and get the name. So that's something I can do. So I'm getting that first element in the array and then getting its name and printing that out. Can I do that? Yeah, you cannot alias on those variables that are in that array. So thanks for watching today at the Destructuring. We destructured objects, we destructured arrays. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, like it, share it with your friends. Let me know in the comments if there's anything we need to follow up on, you have questions about, or if you want more examples. Or let me know what else you want to be looking at when we're talking about some of these really cool JavaScript features. See you later.